Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, Dominion Voting Systems' lawsuit against Fox News is headed to a jury trial later this month following a decision at the end of March, which a judge ruled that the case should survive Fox's motion to dismiss. Quote, the evidence developed in this civil proceeding, Judge Eric M. Davis wrote, demonstrates that it is crystal clear that none of the statements relating to Dominion about the 2020 election are true. Now, the judge is correct about that, and it's worth repeating. Claims that Joe Biden stole the election from Donald Trump via Dominion voting machines or any other conspiracy theory are false. Biden was the legitimate winner of the 2020 election, and the various claims put forward by Trump and his surrogates, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, etc., amounted to nothing. There is no evidence of those claims, and conservatives who took them seriously made a big mistake. But in a society that values the free exchange of ideas, the proper response to bad speech is to counter it with good speech. Dominion has every right to set the record straight, and I understand, given all the lies spread by Trump and Powell and Giuliani, why the company would want to hold those people accountable. But Dominion isn't just suing those people, it's also suing Fox News, the media company that interviewed Powell and Giuliani and others, inviting them on their programs to make their arguments. Now, were some Fox hosts too credulous of the stolen election claims, especially Lou Dobbs, whose show was canceled and he was effectively fired? Sure. Would it have served them and their audience well to push back more aggressively? Yes, although I would note that Tucker Carlson, after giving Sidney Powell every opportunity to present her case, totally eviscerated her evidence-free claims. Let's watch.
We simply wanted to see the details. How could you not want to see them? So we invited Sidney Powell on the show. We would have given her the whole hour. We would have given her the entire week, actually, and listened quietly the whole time at rapt attention. That's a big story. But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her. When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, people in positions of authority, they told us Powell has never given them any evidence either, nor did she provide any today at the press conference. Powell did say that electronic voting is dangerous, and she's right. We're with her there. But she never demonstrated that a single actual vote was moved illegitimately by software from one candidate to another. Not one. So why are we telling you this? We're telling you this because it's true. And in the end, that's all that matters, the truth. It's our only hope. It's our best defense.
Now, viewers can make up their own minds about whether various hosts took too long to effectively respond to the election fraud claims, which, again, I want to be crystal clear, are false claims. What Rudy Giuliani said was false. What Sidney Powell said was false. What Donald Trump said was false. But okay, maybe just sue those people, because it's the work of journalists, of news programs, to cover the news, to interview people, even if they're saying really provocative and far-out things. You don't have to think the way Fox handled this subject was perfect. I certainly don't. But as someone who hosts a news show and interviews controversial people, people like Seymour Hersh, whom the mainstream media is desperate to discredit, I'm worried about the precedent being established here, that the platform, the news show, could be liable for defamation if it does not scrutinize its interview subjects in the exact manner that the targets of those interview subjects would ideally like. If the news organization can be held liable for something a guest says, if the guest isn't able to offer ironclad proof, how would that affect, say, this show's own reporting on Nord Stream? How would it affect coverage of COVID, a subject on which many people, even experts, passionately disagree about the implications of the available evidence? How would it affect reporting on potential criminal misdoings by powerful people, like former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Jeffrey Epstein? Now, Dominion is seeking $1.6 billion in its lawsuit. And let's say Fox can pay that, no problem. But what signal does it send? What about the next lawsuit from someone who's mad about which guests a media company had on to discuss an issue? Maybe the next target isn't as big and powerful as Fox. Maybe it has a settlement without fighting it out in court. We should be really worried about the potential chilling effect here. The First Amendment offers a robust protection of free speech because we recognize that unfettered speech is vital for a democracy. That includes the right to occasionally get things wrong and to explore ideas that don't pan out. If the punishment for doing so is too great, people, journalists, will be too afraid to ask dangerous questions. Will that make us better off? I don't think so. I don't think that's the country we want to live in. So I've been wanting to weigh in on this for a while, not because I'm sympathetic at all to those ridiculous claims, which are all false. I'm not sympathetic to the people who made them, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump. But I don't like this trend of trying to indict an entire news organization and all the journalists that work there, when I think having provocative discussions is important. The freedom to do that without risking massive financial loss is my mind important for American democracy, important for the principles of free speech. And this case threatens to upset the balance that allows people to say provocative, questioning, important, challenging things. Not necessarily even because the details here, but because, this pushes the envelope so that the next time it's a little harder to speak and to dissent and to discuss. That's what I'm worried will happen if there's a massive verdict in Dominion's favors, even though I totally agree that they were maligned by the individuals I've mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, if someone is hired by the president to do something, the fact that you don't like it doesn't make it not news, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's effectively happening here is Fox is being punished for the fact that its viewers and perhaps some of its hosts wanted this to be true, right? It's not for the fact that they spoke about it. It's that they didn't speak about it in condemning enough terms, right? Mm-hmm. Because clearly it met the bar of being of, interest to the public, right? I mean, clearly this was something that was newsworthy that was happening in our nation. Like you, I don't think that it's true. I don't think the election was stolen, but the president believed it, right? Mm-hmm. And that made it newsworthy. And so they're being punished for the fact that their audience wanted this to be true, and that they spoke about news that the left knew was false and was right was false, that their audience wanted to be true, and that they gave a platform to. And that's just like policing your mind, right? Like that's policing, mm-hmm. We don't believe in that in this society, right? And I could not agree with you more. The free press, right? The one of the hallmarks of a free society and a democracy is so important. In fact, the Supreme Court ruled on this very issue in Sullivan v. New York Times, right? Exactly. I mean, this is already law. So it's really just, I think, an attempt. They know they're not going to win. It's an attempt to humiliate Fox News and punish them for their success. And the reason they're successful is because they don't insult their viewers. So I'm so glad you spoke about this and so eloquently. And that clip of Tucker taking down the Sidney Powell claims, people have just memory hold that. I mean, they just act like that didn't happen. But there was a lot of skepticism voiced. I mean, I think Tucker did the best job of it. And he did the best job of it. And it was very courageous because his audience didn't want to hear that from him, right? And he still said it. So I agree with you. And there was
probably no segment more important than that one for setting the record straight among 100%. Conservative voters and Trump supporters. And I think it's so dangerous to get to the place where, because we interview people on the show, I don't always agree with them. Often I don't agree with them. And you're gonna go out, basically, the theory of this lawsuit is to associate the guest views with my own because I wouldn't have made my views clear enough in a way the person suing the guests would think I should. Like, that gets into some very dicey, really dicey waters.
100%.
That I think if enforced, would put us in a place where we could not run our show the way we want to. We could not have the interesting conversations that our audience demands and that we want to have as professional journalists.
Right. And I'll just make one more quick point, which is that, there is a debate among journalists when you're interviewing somebody deplorable, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously your job is to fact check them. Obviously you don't want to just give them free rein, right? But how combative the interview should be, how much you should let them hang themselves versus how much you should intervene to tell the audience, oh, this is right, this is not right. Those are journalistic questions. Those should not be legal questions. But this lawsuit is setting up a precedent where if you want to avoid getting sued for billions of dollars, the law somehow gets to decide those questions. That's very dangerous. Yeah. I'm not willing to cede that conversation to the law. That's a journalistic and an editorial conversation.
100%. And that's what's really at stake here. Honestly, it's free speech itself. So we will continue to follow that lawsuit with great interest and concern, and we'll have more rising right after this.